You are now listening to MVP Podcast, where we explore the business of sports. My name is Courtney.
And I'm Jimmy.
And on this episode, we talked to Justin Alliman, who is the founder of Dream Chaserzzz, which is a basketball organization that gives training and mentorship to athletes of all ages, from kids all the way up to the pros. I mean, the NBA to the WNBA to the national team. We're talking about Serge Ibaka all the way up to, well, I'm not even going to say all the names. You're going to have to tune in to hear about those. But this guy knows his stuff, and not just on the court, but he told us about the journey of how he went from rock bottom to what many would say is he is the premier guy to go to when you're training basketball in Canada. So in this episode, he talks about traveling around the world, reading 12 books a month to teach himself the things that he learned, and then how he used that information to build and bootstrap his company. Talks about the job interview with Masai Ujiri and the crazy tactics that he pulled to impress and get an opportunity to work with some NBA stars. And then also he gave us insight into who his favorite athletes are. And in this one, the third athlete, actually, that one was funny, but it was a good choice, and it kind of shocked me. Jimmy, what'd you think?
This episode is amazing, man. Like, we could say that he had an instrumental part in building an NBA championship team, but you'll get to that part in the episode. But do us a favor, hit the like button, subscribe if you're on YouTube, if you're on Spotify, leave a rating, and share this with somebody. Stop being selfish. You can't keep this all to yourself. Without further ado, here's our conversation with Justin Alliman.
Justin, you've been training people from the pros. You work with Chris Boucher, Serge Ibaka. You've worked with Kia Nurse. You've worked with players from the national team, G League, NCAA. But it wasn't always like that. There was a point in time when the dream was looking kind of bleak. Can you tell me about the time when you got evicted?
Well, that's more recently. That actually happened last year. And that is touching on the facility that I'm in right now. So what had happened was, as in business, you make mistakes, you learn, and you make mistakes, right? And obviously with making mistakes, you take a couple L's during that path. So what I learned, to make it short, is that you want to be in control of your own destiny. And what I did is I left things in other people's hands, and that's what ended up happening, where I got evicted. So I had a lease for my facility, but I wasn't the main leaseholder. I was subleasing my portion of the building from someone else who had the main lease, and they weren't doing what they were supposed to be doing. I was paying all my things. They weren't. And when the landlord came and needed to collect his checks or his money, he wasn't looking at me, because he didn't even know that I was a tenant here. He had thought that it was just the main leaseholder, so he evicted them, which in turn caused me to be evicted as well. So lesson learned is, obviously, don't sublease and be the main person in your own business.
Yeah. And so you had to learn something through that experience, that hopefully other people can listen to this, and while they're building their own businesses, their own organizations, they won't have to feel that one. They can learn from somebody else. But what does it take to get a facility up off the ground? You can't just start that from scratch. Obviously, the programs, Dream Chaserzzz, that started a long, long time ago. So what exactly is Dream Chaserzzz, and what do you do?
Well, it's a company. It's a company that works with amateur athletes all the way. With athletes all the way from amateur status. They can be as young as 4 years old, all the way to professional. That's NBA, national team players. It's everyone within that spectrum. So that really covers the whole entire sport. And it's basketball training, but it's more than just that. It's also mentorship, and it's helping people to reach their goals of wanting to be a professional athlete or whatever it is that they're chasing. Some people only come here and they want to get better for a summer so they can make their high school team. If that's their goal and that's what they're after, then here we are to help, obviously we all know that not everyone's going to become an NBA or WNBA player, but maybe they can learn something along the way that's going to help them on their journey to becoming whatever it is that they want to be. I've had guys and girls come here who say, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer, but I'm here to learn life lessons that basketball or sports can teach me. I need to be able to work with a team. I need to be able to work under pressure. I need to be able to hold myself accountable. Stuff of this nature is what basketball also teaches you, right? And because I was doing those things on the court, I kind of parlayed this into a mentorship off the court as well. So I started going into schools and developing a program that, schools could use in the Boys and Girls Club to help keep kids out of trouble, and in the gym, so life skills, basketball, training, and of course, holistic, what do you call it, mentorships.
Yeah, it all goes hand in hand.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So before you were in your own facility and you had the shiny things, the Normatec boots and the big TVs and all that kind of stuff, of course. Hey, and I know about them Normatec boots. I don't know if everybody's been in those, but they make the legs fresh. They get you right so you could get back on the court, get back to action. But what was the step before this? What did that look like before you had a space to call your own? How were you running your programs, and how did you bootstrap it from just like an idea to something that was real, that was tangible?
Well, before this facility, I was using schools. I was renting schools and different private gyms, if there were any at the time. I mean, I've been doing it for a long time, almost 13 years now. So I first started off at renting community centers, and then I learned better ways and more efficient ways, which was renting schools, and then try to maximize what I could do within those spaces. But the problem with schools and community centers is a lot of times they give you, especially schools, they give you 2-hour time slots, right? So you got to be able to do everything that you want in that day within that 2-hour time slot. So whether that's group training or one-on-one training or small group training, everything has to happen within that 2 hours. And obviously, as you know how it is, people's schedules are busy. Not everyone is able to come to a Monday session 6 to 8. Some people work those times. Some people just can't make it on those times. They have other obligations. So I had to get more schools, like one every day, at least one every day, to try to accommodate everybody. And still, obviously, that wasn't enough. I was maxing out everything I could do there. And then it came to a point where I was like, you know what, if an opportunity arises and there is a right building or something that I could use to build or construct my facility, then I'm gonna have to go for that. But so I would obviously only advise people to go for that if they're maximizing, everything else that they've done.
Right. Yeah, you can't skip steps and just hop to it. You got to build something first that you can. Otherwise, you can have a big hollow building with nobody in it, and it's just you with the bill. Yeah.
Oh, and that bill's big.
How big? Ballpark.
I mean, it depends. It depends on like the square footage and stuff of that nature. But I mean, if you're talking about my facility, we're probably about 5,000 square feet. So anybody who knows real estate will know what that looks like. And then there's other things though. People don't understand that it's not just rent that you pay for these spaces. It's heat, it's water, electricity, it's you fixing things when they break, it's maintenance fees, it's everything combined, it's insurance, it's security deposits, it's all that stuff.
Okay. So there's a lot more risk, but there's a higher reward potential.
Yeah, there's a lot more risk to lose money for sure, but if you're doing it right and you have a promising business plan and you're someone who can execute, then there's definitely a lot more return that you can get outside of just being in the school for 2 hours or wherever it is.
So with a business plan, would some people say they have a business plan, but it's really just trying to do the same thing that they were doing before, but just larger? Did you actually sit down and put pen to paper? Did you run numbers to see like, okay, right now I'm doing 4 sessions a week with these 2-hour time slots. I got X amount of kids. I'm charging them this much. If I had a facility, rent's going to probably charge me that much. Like how?
Yeah. So I actually did that. So when my realtor found the space, or like the guy who I was subleasing, they found the space and they suggested like, hey, like I know you do basketball. If you want a space, there's a space potentially this is what it would cost. I started to look at the numbers. Like a lot of people, when they do business, they're not really looking at their numbers. They're saying, okay, cool, today I made $200 or whatever it is that they made,
Right.
you know, but they're only calculating what they make. They don't usually go and look at their expenses like, okay, I made 200, but what did this cost me? How much
Right.
did it, if this cost me, if I made 200 today off of what I just did the session here, what were my expenses? So what did I actually make? Like the gas that it cost me to drive here, the money that it cost me to rent this gym. So maybe it cost me $120 to rent the gym, and it cost me $20 gas. That's a $140. I only made $60. Yeah, you got 200 cash, but you're not calculating what you've lost. Plus, what for me now at this stage in my career where I'm at, I don't even just calculate those things. I calculate like my time. So, which most people don't. What is my time worth? Am I going to spend 2 hours here doing this, or is it worth more that I go somewhere else? You know what I mean? Or is my time worth more than that where I just don't even go that day?
So how would you even begin to quantify that? Is it based off in the past? You know, I've done an event where I've been able to bring out 50 people at a time. I know that the highest and best use of my time is, you know, I'm doing jobs that are $100 an hour. And if not, I'm trying to outsource it. Or do you look at things such as, you know, for this type of program that I put on with between jerseys and rental space and all of that kind of stuff, it's going to be $12 per head cost. If I can't charge at least double that, then I'm not running the event. Like, what kind of frameworks would you use, or are there even just models that you would think in your mind to try to weigh the pros and the cons?
Yeah, that's exactly how I used to think when I was doing it at different schools or like a community center or something like that, because I really need to, like a community center charges like 200, 250 for 2 hours, something crazy, like 125 per hour, you know? So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do a group session today. Usually people are like, okay, let's do $20 for the kid. I'm just throwing out random numbers. $20 per kid, they get 10 kids. Okay, that's 200. Maybe they get 30, sorry. When I say 10 kids, they get 10 kids. That's $200. Maybe they get 20 kids, right? So now they're at $400. But again, it's you have to be able to take the numbers that you have to be able to see what the prices of what you're doing in terms of the community center or whichever venue that you're using, and like you said, price it out and see if that makes sense. Because more times, if you don't do it, if you do it, you're gonna end up paying more. So I would say when you're just starting out, sometimes you have to take that loss just to get things started up
and get your name out.
Yeah, to get your name out. So maybe you do something and you take $100 or $200 loss, but you needed that video. You needed it for promotion, or you needed it just to start things up. And now it's an every week thing. You know what I mean? That it depends. Like everyone's different, and there is going to be no return without the risk. But it just depends on how consistent you're going to be, because some people might take the loss one time and decide that that's it for them. You know, they're not willing. But I wouldn't always take it and see it as a loss. I saw it as an investment. Anytime that I invest in myself, it's going to cost me no matter what it is. I'm not going to get that money back right away, but I'm thinking long-term game.
And so when you started out in the very beginning, did you envision it looking like how it looks now, or were you just starting out for fun, just for the passion of it? Like, what was the first seed? What'd that look like?
I definitely didn't envision it how it looked now. This vision only came to my head about probably 4 years ago. You know, that's not even that long ago, but it seems like so long ago. I honestly had no vision. I started out and I was like, I love basketball. I like business. And I like training kids and people and youth and stuff like this. So I'm just going to go out there and I'm going to make a little money and have some fun while I do it. And I'm going to make this into a business, but I never envisioned having an entire facility and having like, for me, it's not even about the facility and the kids and everything that for me, it's the culture and the community that I'd be able to build over the years. And that's where I think a lot of trainers go wrong, where they just think it's about being on court, training and who has the coolest drills and stuff like that. It's not, because over time, there's only so many drills you can do. There's only so many things everybody, at some point you have to shoot the ball and put it in the basket. So it doesn't matter what you do before that. The ball still got to go in there. And there's only three ways to get in there: a layup, a jump shot, or a dunk. So all that razzle dazzle that you do before that, okay, cool.
Yeah.
But you still got to put it in the basket, but if you build that culture and community, I feel like that's just going to leave a lasting impression, and that's what's going to allow other people to, even if they can't play basketball, still want to be a part of it, still donate, still want to come around and still show interest, and still like continue to send kids and athletes your way,
Yeah, you're building an actual camaraderie among the people. People leave, they want to come back. Other people see what you're doing, they want to support.
Yep.
They might not come out for a full membership, but they might drop in for a session. And I think that's kind of what's apparent when I look and when I scroll the Instagram. And I told you, I've been following along for a long time. I used to run a program that was similar, but more football oriented. And you can see the look on the pro people's faces when you put them in the same room as the youth. Yeah. It's like the pros are almost like liberated. It's like they're having flashbacks, and there's so much they want to say, and they're trying to like get it all out because they don't know how many times they're going to get to talk to these kids. But what's it like to create those moments, man, and just, be able to have those cool impressions made on the youth? Who knows how impactful that would be?
You know what? It's just something that I try to do as often as I can, because it's something that I would have wanted when I was their age, and it was like the way that I would structure my workouts, especially now that I have a facility, it's a lot more private than being in these public spaces, is I would put a professional athlete, and then I put like kids, and then I put a professional athlete, then I put kids, because I want the kids to have a chance to be able to see these athletes train before them, so I could give them the same kind of speech and say, look, like, you guys are training the same place that these Antetokounmpo brothers are training. You know what I mean? Like, you want to be like these guys. You're training in the same place. You're doing the same drills. They're just doing it differently than you guys. They're going harder than you guys. That's the difference. But it's no difference in where you're training, who's training you, and what you guys are doing. It's about the intensity that they're taking into the training. So I let them come in, and they could come and watch that session, not the whole thing, because you still want to give these guys their privacy, but they'll come in on the tail end. Mm-hmm. There's 10 minutes left. That's when the kids usually start coming in, and they're like, wow, this guy's here. And they start taking their phones and whatever. But they get to see the difference between how they're training and how this is. And then at the end of it, usually these pro players want to give them a little piece of advice. Talk about the coach who's training them, or talk about how they need to take their workout a little bit more seriously, and that they're no different from these kids, and how they wish they had opportunities that these kids have, because a lot of them, they didn't also grow up where they had trainers and opportunities where they could, have somebody who's like myself, who's done it at a high level, come back and show them. This is their opportunity now, and they're taking advantage of it. But had they had that from a younger age, like these kids do, who knows,
Yeah. And I mean, that's priceless, man. So how did you, like, everybody would love to train NBA players, everybody would love to train the best players in the WNBA or national team or whatever. How do you break into that? Like, how did that become a thing that Justin does, and that's normal for you? Where did that begin?
Where did it begin? It's so weird. It seems like so long ago, and it just seems like it's always been there now. But I feel like, shoot, who's the first? God, I don't even remember who the first was. Siakam was one of the first ones. Siakam was one of the first. Yeah, because when I got my job with Toronto, one of my tasks were to train one of the Raptors players, and they didn't even tell me who. They just said, you got to be prepared. See if you could think on the fly, what would you do if you're training this player? And then he came from behind like a curtain, and it was him.
It's like a game show.
Pretty much. But the crazy part about it is he came from behind the curtain, and Masai was there, and one of the coaches was there. I don't know if you know another coach from Toronto named Jama.
Yeah, Jama's a legend.
Yeah, he is. Shout out to Jama. But he was also there. So I was leading it, and Jama was like assistant as I was doing this, right? And so Siakam comes around the curtain and he's like, Justin? And Masai's like, how do you know him? He's like, come on. What do you mean, how do I know him? He knows my family. He trains my brother, you know? And so I got lucky in that sense.
Holy.
Where I had already been training his brother who was trying to make it to the G League, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I had met him through that. But
how did you get in that room though? Like, how did you end up in a room with Masai and the Raptors staff? Like, so you just can't just gloss over that, my man.
I mean, so this is how it actually happened now. Now I remember. Sometimes you forget. So obviously, you know, I've done a lot of work in my past for free. Obviously, when you're starting out, you gotta kind of take what you can get. So I started out working with a team in the NBL. If you guys remember the NBL, National Basketball League of Canada. So they had,
it's like a predecessor to the CEBL.
Exactly.
Right.
It's kind of like where they got a model from. So I was working there for free every day. I was coming from a factory, overnight work at a factory. Then I was going straight there in the morning to work these guys up, right? And so one day we got announced that the Raptors are coming to check out the Hershey Center at the time, is what it was called. And now it's called the Paramount Fine Food Center, but it was Hershey Center back then. And they're like, the Raptors are coming. They might want to buy the building, and you know, they might want to bring a G League team here or something like this, right? So everyone's like, okay, that's cool, whatever. So long story short, they ended up buying it, and that's how the Raptors G League team ended up coming there. And because I was working on that team, some of the guys who were working with the Mississauga Power got pulled up to go to the Raptors 905. So the president of the Mississauga Power, he ended up getting called up to go to the 905, and then I ended up getting interviewed to go up there as well. So I got that interview, and one of my assignments was to create a player development program for if I had an NBA player for an entire summer. So for 3 months, what would I do with them? And they assigned me to Chris Boucher because we had just signed him as he was coming from I think Golden State Warriors G League team. And we had signed him as a two-way player. So they're like, if you had Chris Boucher for 3 months, what would you do? Give us a write-up, a report. And so Jama had assigned that to me because he was the head coach of the 905. And he was like, if we were going to hire you, we want to know that you can do the job. Assigned it to me. He said, you got a week to do it. I talked to him on Monday. He said, got a week to do it. I called him back on Tuesday. The next day I said, it's done. He said, what do you mean it's done? I said, it's done. He said, you don't even know. Actually, he didn't even tell me which player to do it on. He said, you don't even know which player to do it on yet. I was going to tell you that today. I said, which player? He said, Chris Boucher. I said, it's done. I cut him off. I said, which player? He said, Chris. I said, it's done. Boucher? He said, yeah, it's done. He said, all right, Siak. I said, it's done. I did an assignment on every single player on the team. Just in case they asked me for somebody, I was already prepared. He said, but you have a week to get it done. I said, oh, I don't need a week.
Okay.
I had already been planning for this way before they even asked me to do it, because I had heard stories like being prepared for the blessing before it even gets there. And that was my motto. You know, I can't ask for something and then not be prepared when it gets here, when God gives you what I asked for. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
this was already in the works for me when I knew that I was going to be interviewed. I just did it. And it was 40 pages. 40 pages, and I did video too. I cut and did video and handed 40 pages. When he saw that, he was like, all right, come in for the interview tomorrow.
He's the guy. So
I came in for the interview, and then I came in for the interview, and they said, we're not going to tell you, since you did all these players, we're not going to tell you, but this is who you're going to come show up at OVO, and you're going to train somebody, you're going to lead it. And then that's when it happened, when he came from behind the wall that they have, and it was Siakam. Then it was just a sign for them that I'm the guy, because it was like, okay, we gave him an assignment, he finished it a week early. It's 40 pages with video, but nobody else did that. And everybody else handed it in 7 days later. And then we tell him that he's going to train somebody. Guy walks from behind the wall. It's Siakam. He's like, Justin? He already knows who he is.
Oh, yeah. That's wild. That's wild.
And then, and so then they go to me. They're like, okay, so you're going to do the 905. You'll be an assistant coach. And then they're like, do you want to also help out with the Raptors? Like, do player development when you can. Like, you know, I'm like, obviously, of
They
course.
said, do you? Do I?
I said, yeah, I'm there. Because again, you prepare for these blessings before they actually get there.
Mm-hmm.
So I get to the first Raptors practice. And so I was going from the 905 practice straight to the Raptors practice, because Mississauga to OVO is nothing. It's 20 minutes, you know, or 25 minutes. And I get there and Fred VanVleet's there. He's like, Justin? And now Messiah again, he's like, how does everybody know this guy? I had shot a commercial with Fred VanVleet 2 weeks prior to that.
Holy.
It was a sick kids hospital commercial. It was so I still have the commercial, everything. It's me and
Sick
him.
Kids marketing is phenomenal, by the way.
It is. Shout out to them too. They do a great job. And so when he saw me, he was like, bro. And Messiah's like, all right, this is the guy. He's done. He's hired.
Wow. To get the blessing from Messiah.
And I think that really started my NBA player development stuff. I had trained some guys before that, but it was kind of like one-offs.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I got up to the Raptors and with the 905 and then was doing player development with the Raptors, from time to time, Serge was like, yo, I want you to be my guy. First, he liked my waves. And so he was, he's tall, right? He's taller than me. So he was like, he goes, how do you get your hair like that? I was like, you got to brush your hair, bro. And you got to wear a do-rag. He said, get my hair like that, please. I said, okay. And he said, do you train? I said, yeah. He said, you'll be my trainer. You could train me in basketball and my hair.
There you go.
So we started working on his waves, and we do on-court stuff like 3 times a week.
That's wicked.
I almost went to Africa with him when he went back to Congo and he did his thing, but I couldn't. I told him, I can't. I'm not flying out there with you.
Yo, that's wild. And I know that you're going to have a barber chair inside Dream Chaserzzz. That would be...
You know what's crazy? I already had that. On select Sundays, when all the other barber shops are closed, you can come here.
Get your cuts.
Yep, that's like 2K.
That's amazing, man. That's amazing. So do you feel like that process upped your confidence so that when you're in the room with a Pascal Siakam or a Serge Ibaka or a Fred VanVleet, like just slowly progressing up those ranks of players and having those opportunities where somebody asks you, can you do this? And you say yes, and then you follow through. Like, what does that do for your confidence?
I mean, it's a huge boost, of course, you know, when for anything, like I'm assuming for any job, especially with performance jobs, you know, and these athletes will tell you straight to your face whether it's good or not, or they'll just be like, no, I'm not doing that. When they think it's ridiculous, like, and you're like, okay, I want you to do this, and that. They're like, nah,
I want you to jump through this hoop right here and do all the Instagram drills.
Yeah, I'm not doing that. You know, so when you're saying these things and they're looking at you like you're the professional, it's a great confidence boost. And I feel like if you're doing the job correctly and you're doing what you're supposed to and you're a master of your craft and you've done your research, then that's exactly what should happen. Because yeah, you play basketball for a living. This is what you do. But I'm a trainer. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to go into a doctor's office and he tells you or she tells you, this is the medicine you take. And you're like, nah, no, I'm prescribing this to you because I know that this is what works. You know what I mean? So again, you got to study. And then there's no one shoe fits all for these basketball guys either, for these NBA or WNBA players. Like, you have to figure out their game, study what they need to work on, and build something customizable for them so that they could be successful.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes I see people do cookie cutter methods where everybody's doing the same drills, and that's just not practical.
Yeah.
Like, I can't train a guy like Allen Iverson how I would train Serge Ibaka. It doesn't work. You know what I mean?
Right. No, that makes
total
sense.
They'll definitely see right through that stuff.
Mm-hmm. And so you mentioned briefly you were shooting a video for Sick Kids with Fred. How did you get tied into that? And just in general, you seem like a guy who's pretty savvy with marketing, promotion. You've got a brand ambassador partnership with Adidas Canada. You've done a deal with Sport Check. Like, like a lot of athletes know the game, like the game of basketball, or even training for that matter. The game of business is so different. How did you learn that stuff? And tell me a little bit about any one of these opportunities, because I want to know about all of them.
Well, right now, me and Fred have two things that we've done. Two commercials or things that we shot. So one of them was with Sick Kids back in the day, a couple of years ago, and then most recently, I put one of my clients in a commercial with Fred VanVleet. This girl named Denai Prawl, up and comer. Shout out to her and the family. But they just did a Samsung commercial as well. So we brought Fred VanVleet back in, and it was a good, oh shoot, you're here again type of moment. But to get into those things, the way I learned business, one, I went to university for business, but that doesn't make you an expert marketer. You know, it doesn't do any of those things. What it does is it teaches you it's business admin. So it teaches you the basics. You have to go above and beyond if you want above and beyond, you know? So while I was living in India, I lived in India for about a year and a half.
How the hell you get to India?
I opened 5 basketball academies out there.
Oh my gosh, how much time we got? Because I got questions.
So while I was living in India, opening these basketball academies, I had a lot of time on my hands, and I had nobody to talk to, because India, I think it's 13 hours ahead, or maybe 12 hours ahead.
Yeah,
it's crazy like this.
Complete other side of the world.
Yeah, so I couldn't talk to. So imagine it's 12 a.m. Let's say it's 12 a.m. here. It's 12 p.m. over there. So when it's 12 p.m. over there, everybody here is sleeping. And then I'm going through the day at 5 p.m. over there. It's 5 a.m. over here. So I'm like, I'm still not talking to anybody.
Wow.
And I had a Samsung. I had an Android. Sorry, Samsung. I had an Android.
So you had the green bubble in the group chat?
I did. I couldn't text anybody, right? I couldn't text anybody.
Tough. Wow.
All I could do was WhatsApp, but nobody was really using that from North America. That's like an overseas type of thing. Yeah. So I was like, bro, you need to make some WhatsApp groups so I can be included. Then I finally got an iPhone and then got into the into the iMessage. But that's another story.
Yeah, so that's hilarious.
So I had a lot of time on my hands. And plus I was only working like 3 hours a day, right? So I'd go do my thing at these schools for 3 hours a day, or these academies that I was building for 3 hours a day, and then I had the whole day. So what I did is I went to the library, opened up a library card membership in India, and I took out all the business books that I could possibly find. So 1 week it was like contract negotiation. I read up everything, all the Harvard business books and contract negotiation. Maybe 6, 7, or 8 of these books I read while I was there in 1 month. This is 1 month. 1 month. I read 12 books a month. And I'm not talking about like, these are like Harvard books I was reading. And I would make notes, highlight them, do this. And then because I had so much time, right? What else was I going to do? Yeah. So I started to teach myself things, and I started to learn how to brand myself and how to market myself. And the first deal I actually got off of reading all these books and teaching myself the game was a Converse deal in India. So I was working with Converse India while I was over there. I parlayed myself into something over there, and I was like, yo, if I could do this while I was over there, why can't I do something when I get back home? You know? So again, I used the knowledge and the savvy that I learned from these books. So whoever says self-taught or self-teaching you can't do it is a liar, because that's all that taught me how to do it.
Yeah.
Now I've been able to work with the NBA, OLG, lottery, gaming, all that stuff. Adidas, Jordan, Nike, Under Armour, Converse, RYU, Red Bull, Gatorade, Samsung, Sick Kids. There's so many, the list goes on.
Okay, those are all top tier brands. Like, you didn't say Fruit of the Loom, which is still kind of a top tier brand, but like,
I would love to worry about
Fruit of the Loom. I got Fruit of the Loom on right now still, but so like, I know we're not going to get 12 books a month worth of information right now, but just on the Cole's notes, like, what is the tip? Like, what's the takeaway? Is it just you need to be organized in the way that you approach people? Is it that you need to be able to quantify the value you have when you enter a conversation? Is it a needs analysis? Like,
I think that all those things are valuable, but most companies and CEOs or whoever it is that you're speaking to in regards to trying to get yourself that deal or partnership or sponsorship, and people don't even realize, first of all, understand what it is that you're asking for. Is it a partnership? Is it a sponsorship? Is it a brand deal? Like, these things are all different things. You know what I mean? People think that a partnership and a sponsorship is the same thing because they're not knowledgeable enough to understand the difference, or they haven't just taken the time to know. So when you go to these companies, you have to know what you're asking for. And then knowing what you're asking for allows you to talk to them in a certain way. That lets them know that, okay, this guy or girl is about their business and this is how I should approach it. So when you know what you're asking for, then obviously you need to know the steps necessary. 1, are they even looking for people? 2, what makes you stand out from everybody else? 3, would you choose you? You always got to look in the mirror first.
Would you choose you?
And obviously, and be realistic with yourself. Don't just say yes because you're you. Why? Break down the pros as to why I would choose myself and the cons, because everyone has pros and cons, no matter what it is. There's 2 sides of the coin always.
Good.
You know, and I would start like that. But obviously, having the knowledge to be able to know how to negotiate, that was big for me. Because I was the one negotiating all my contracts.
So what are some of the common terms in some of these brand partnerships? Is it for a duration of time? Is it for a number of promotional pieces? What kind of obligations do they put on you?
Yeah, all those things. So all those things is going to be like the terms listed, the number of branded posts you might have to make, whether if that's an Instagram thing or maybe it's or a TikTok thing. I don't know what people are using. Monetary value, depending on the brand, or if they feel like that's something that you want. Gear or promotional material, stuff like that. Like, everyone's deal and everyone's thing that they want could be different. Again, that's up to the person to negotiate. If they have an agent, obviously it makes it easier because someone could speak on their behalf. But if they don't, it's fine. Like, if you know how to speak, then go ahead and speak. You know?
Yeah.
But again, most people aren't versed on those things.
Right.
They don't understand the lingo or the language. So they will lose out on things that they're uneducated about just because they don't know.
Right. Or because they didn't pick up the books to find out.
Exactly.
So right now with your partnership with Adidas, you've been able to, is that personal or is that attached to Dream Chasers? Are they one and the same? How does that work?
So for me, I actually just had a personal one. That's how it started. But I then went parlayed that into, I need my brand to have their own separate deal as well. So most people could get one. I got 2. But again, that's me knowing the value of myself and the value of my company. You know what I mean? So I don't know if that will work for everybody else. But again, I've been able to separate myself from my brand. Yes, I want people to look at me as Justin Alliman, not as Dream Chasers. When I first started, it was like, this. Oh, that's Dream Chasers. No, that's not Dream Chasers. It's Justin. But because they felt like we were one and the same, and I didn't differentiate the two, that's what people called me, and that's what people knew me as. I had to build myself outside of that. And this is why I went out and said, you know what? I'm going to let my brand continue to grow. I am going to hire trainers who can work within my brand and still continue that work while I'm not here. And I go build my own personal brand.
And is that so that you can scale?
Yeah. Well, I feel like any very successful business needs to be able to do that. You know, the CEO can't just be sitting there every single day and being in there, especially if he wants to be a multi-millionaire. And I'm not saying that that's what I want to be. I'm just saying there's other things that I want to be.
I'm not saying that's not what you want to be. I personally think there's not, and look, I'm going to just say this for me. There's nothing wrong with making money, especially when you know that it comes from a good place of adding value back into the world. And I feel like, I feel like, you know, people are quick to
knock that.
Yeah, people are quick to knock folks who want to get money, but quite honestly,
that's because they're the folks who don't want to go out there and
Put the value
get
back.
money. Yeah, they don't want to. Well, they don't want to go out there and work for it. So I feel like sometimes people knock the people who are going out there and working extremely hard or putting in the extra work because, and then they're making a lot of money. And, you know, they're kind of looking at them like, oh, well,
Yeah, that's not
he
important.
just works harder. He just works a little bit harder.
Yeah,
which is again, it's different for everyone. Not everyone is after those things, and I don't care to be rich. I just want to be comfortable, well off. I want to be in a good spot where there's nothing I need to worry about. And if I want to buy this, I can. And if I want to do that, I can do it. Go on a couple of vacations.
Yeah.
You know, do that stuff.
That makes sense. You want freedom and you want autonomy, which is like a human right, just to be able to make choices about what you do with yourself and your time. I feel you on that.
Exactly.
So let me ask you a question, because what you did with the studying reminds me, I read that a lot of great people, they go off and like they get in solitude, and that's where they do their best thinking and their best work, and just come out on the other side with like the idea for the iPhone or whatever it is, like whether you're Steve Jobs or Einstein, just famous for taking walks and thinking and marinating and studying. But like, from your study, what did you learn about pricing your product or like packaging up your product? What is a way that people, because and I think this is one that will be valuable for a lot of people, is like a lot of athletes know, okay, I can go to the gym and I can become a personal trainer, or I could get some kids, bring them to a field and I can, you know, teach them how to backpedal, or I could get a court, I could teach kids how to, you know, put up shots. But like, where is the point where that goes from being like a side hustle? Like, what's the formula for taking that information and packaging it up and making it into a business? Like,
now you are all the gems. You are all the gems. Well, here's what I think. I don't think that there's a certain or one formula, you know, a one trick that creates that side hustle and turns it into a prominent business. I think that, believe it or not, to me, I think that it's a mindset shift. That's where I really think it comes down to it. Like, because I wasn't there at one point where it was a side hustle for me. When I came back from playing, I started selling cards, right? And then I was doing this Dream Chasers thing on the side. I was doing it on weekends. And one weekend, I think one of the first weekends, I made like $400 in the weekend. And this was like 2011 or something like this. I was like, shoot, yo, I made $400 in 2-3 hours. Man, this is amazing, you know. And then I told but I was side hustling, you know. And I was like, okay, cool, I'm gonna quit my job. It's a good job that had me driving in Benz and living in a condo and eating out and doing all the things I want to do, you know. So I quit that job, and I still had the same mindset though. And what do you think happened?
this stuff probably didn't go too well.
Oh, it didn't. People stopped showing up. And all of a sudden, that 400 I made in the 2-3 hours was the only 400 I made in that month.
Yeah.
So it was like, but now I have nothing. You know what I mean? And for me, because I had that side hustle mindset, like this is my side hustle, I wasn't able to make that switch and turn it into a business that was able to sustain myself and the lifestyle that I want. It was just a side hustle. And what I did was I went away to India, and I was able to be there in solitude. I didn't even know that Steve Jobs and these other guys do that stuff. But for me personally, like, I like to take like 2-3 vacations a year where I just go off and I have to be by myself, at least for like 2 days. And I just get all my best ideas. I tell everybody this. Every time I go away, I come back with what I say is $1 million idea, and then it changes everything. My business levels up one more time, one more level. But I think personally, again, it's a mindset thing. You know, it's not anything more to me than just changing your mindset and saying, how do I make this, or how do I take this from here and make it into something where, how does it make sense to become a profitable business where I can do this every day?
Yeah.
For the rest of my life, or for the next 10 years, or for however long I put these terms on.
Yeah.
And to do that, you know.
That's amazing.
But if you always think of it as a side hustle, or go into it like a side hustle, it's going to be a side hustle forever. Or if you start to say, I want to take this full time, but your mindset isn't like, I'm going to do it full time, you still treat it like a side hustle, because you make a couple $100 here and there, then that's all it's ever going to be.
Yeah.
Treat it like your full-time job. Like you go to work, people who have a 9 to 5 go there 9 to 5. They spend 8 hours doing that, whether they like it or not. Go and spend 8 hours a day doing this and see how you can make it better.
Yeah. I like that.
Because a lot of people think that, like, they'll look at me and say, oh, well, how did you get this? Or how did you determine your pricing? Or how are you doing X, Y, and Z? Can you give me the steps? I'm like, there are no secret steps.
Yeah.
Put your 10,000 hour in.
Yeah.
How many hours have you put into what you're trying to do?
Right. Charge not enough and don't make any money back. That's how you find out what the price is.
I said, give me 10 hours. This month alone, put 10 hours into your business. If you can't put 10 hours into your business this month, we're not in the same we can't have the conversation because you're not willing to do what I've done to get here. I'm only asking for 10 hours in a month. Say,
that's not a lot.
In a month. It's not a lot. But for somebody to focus for 10 hours and say, I'm really going to lock in to my own craft for 10 hours is a lot to them. And if that's a lot to you, then this is not a conversation that we should have.
I love that. Yo, Justin, getting close to wrapping up here, but you definitely didn't ask me to promote this or anything, but you've been giving so much information. You mentioned before that you're teaching people and mentoring people in the form of putting together some material, some course material that people could learn some of this stuff. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, it's not out yet, but I have been working on 2 courses. One of them is a branding and marketing course where it's going to teach anyone who wants to learn how to get in contact with brands and how to promote yourself and how to build your own brand personally. Because I often feel like, again, we want all these brands to look at us and sponsor us when we don't even have something that is worth looking at or sponsoring it. You know what I mean? Like, build yourself up first before Nike or Adidas or Jordan or whoever it is, these brands that you want is going to come. Why? Again, look at yourself in the mirror and ask, would I choose me? Out of all the people out there who they could sponsor, would you choose you if you were in charge of making the decision? And if you can't honestly say yes without being biased, then you have work to do. And even I have work to do. I'm not perfect. I have to be chosen again and again and again every year. Like right now, I've been with the dudes for, I think, 5 years now. They have to choose me every year. But if I stayed the same as I was in year 1, they're not going to choose me again. It's not a friendship type of thing. This is business.
Yeah.
I have to be doing something that can help them help me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's what that course is about. It's about helping you build your own brand. And then also, once it's built to a certain level, how to now go and speak to these brands and grab their attention. That's the first course. The second one is talking about, people who want to be basketball trainers. It's called So You Want to Be a Trainer. And it is telling you step by step how to go from 0 to 100 real quick. No,
Love
not
that.
real quick. That was just the Drake. This is the Drake song.
If anything, I learned from this story, it went none quick.
Nah, not at all.
Chapter 1, go to India.
Yeah, and I mean, I've at this point I've lived in like 12 different countries in the world, so doing all that stuff. So it's just it's a lot, but you gotta love it. You really gotta love it.
You gotta love it. But when you pour yourself into something and it's coming from a true place, you can weather those storms. And on the other side is something that nobody else would be capable of getting, because you got to go through something to get it. So I appreciate you taking this time, man. Definitely a lot of crazy valuable information here. One question that we leave all our guests with before we go is, who are your 3 favorite athletes? It doesn't have to be the 3 best, but who are your 3 favorite athletes of all time?
3 favorite athletes of all time.
Yeah.
Kobe Bryant. That's my guy. When you said that, I looked over at a poster I have of him on the wall right here.
Yeah.
And you know why? And this poster says, if you do not believe in yourself, no one will do it for you. I love that quote by Kobe, because it's just, he always had the greatest self-belief in himself. And so do I. Like, I don't care who's against me. If I believe in what I'm doing and I have God on my side, and I'm there. You know, I'm going to go all in and make believers of the people who didn't believe.
Love that.
And then I like my other poster right here, Muhammad Ali.
That's a great one.
Just a legend in general, but his quote says, "I'm going to show you how great I am." Again, because, you know, maybe people didn't believe in him, or maybe they did, but again, he was just on a mission to show the world and everybody else around him how great he was, and he definitely did that. And then I have another poster here. It's not an athlete, but I mean, he probably did some athletics in his day. It's Martin Luther King. And I'm gonna put him in there anyways, because he said, "I have a dream," you know. And obviously Black History Month just ended, but you know, we call ourselves dream chasers. I believe that we all have a dream. It's just how much we're willing to go and fight for that. You know, and I've been willing to go to all ends of the earth, and I've been there and done it, and I'll do it again if I have to, in order to get this out and do what I have to do.
That's a tough spirit to compete against, man. I appreciate you. Where can people learn more about Dream Chasers, and where can people follow Justin Alliman?
You can follow me on my social media. My Instagram is Justin Alliman it's just Justin Alliman. It's just I was about to use my email. It's Justin Alliman on Instagram, and then my Dream Chasers one is dream.chasers. So dream.chaser. Don't sleep on me.